Hello and welcome to the Leave a Legacy podcast, where we go beneath the skin of some of the UK's most exciting entrepreneurs to see what makes them tick, what the future holds and how they got to where they are today. This podcast is powered by Kurogo, so special thank you to those guys. We hope you enjoy. Good morning and welcome to the Leave a Legacy podcast. I'm joined by former professional footballer, now Wolf of Wall Street, Lawrie Wilson, who is a founding partner of WillU Financial. Welcome, Lawrie.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So the idea with the Leave a Legacy podcast is that we get to hear from our members, we get to hear about what makes them tick, what makes them who they are today and how they come to be in terms of what you're currently doing with WillU. And as we all know, professional football is where your career started, but let's go back further than that to Lawrie, the young man, where you grew up, what sort of aspirations you had and obviously how you got into sport in the first place.
So yeah, I mean, I grew up in East London. And then slowly my parents moved out. We started living in Essex, and I mean, I was very sporty. I mean, my parents always I was doing cricket, football, rugby, all of the sports.
Yeah. And
they very much. I never felt like there was a time when I was young where I wasn't doing anything, where I would be like, I want to go and hang out on the streets or do anything like that. I always had something on. So really, from a young age, I was very sort of sport driven. And there was travelling all over the country with my dad and mum, to different games. And
that was through the football academies.
That was football academies. That was cricket as well. But yeah, I just always felt like I was always doing something. There was never anything where I wasn't doing anything at all.
What ages did you get into academies?
So I actually signed for Charlton at the age of 9.
Right.
That was full time. And it was a Thursday evening. And my parents would take me there. And then on a Saturday and a Sunday, there'd be games. And that was pretty much from the age of 9 to the age of 15. I was at Charlton.
Right.
The whole time. So that was kind of the norm for me was travelling to Charlton, playing football, but of a weekend, obviously that was in the football season. In the summer, it was cricket.
Right, so you're getting to 15 years old, which is, I know personally, was when I started going, I want to go out, I want to go and have a drink, go out with my friends. How were you sort of kept on that sporting path? Because obviously you made it, you became a professional footballer, but at that 14, 15, they're critical times for anyone in the academy system because you're either going to get spat out or you're going to carry on.
Yeah, so mine was slightly different to your average kind of academy player that was there the whole time. At 15, make or break decision. Do you go pro and get a YTS, or do you go elsewhere, or do you fall out of the game? And I was very lucky that at the age of 13, I actually went to boarding school, which was a sports school, quite well known in the country as well. And it was kind of the making of me, because I was a little bit of a brat. I was kind of quite that sort of Essex London boy, and I got in bits of trouble here and there at school, and that was just the way I was. I was cheeky, and then suddenly I went to this boarding school, and everybody was so different from me, from a completely different upbringing, and I had to adapt, and I had to really kind of get stuck into who I was, everything about the school. And I remember like the first 2 weeks that I was there, my mum won't enjoy this one, but first two weeks that I was there, I got basically of a weekend, you either go home or you stay at the boarding house, and kind of the older kids have drinks and all the rest of it. Anyway, I got sort of cornered into having a drink with the older kids. Came back a little bit drunk. Bearing in mind, this is at like 13, 14, and come back in, and obviously the teacher at the time seeing me was like, "You've been drinking." Parents had to be called up, and bearing in mind the school was like 3.5 hours away, so parents have had to come in. They've given them a dressing down, and I remember going home that day just not speaking the whole way home, like the whole car journey. Get home and they kind of like sit me down, and they're just like, "Right, you've got an opportunity here. You've been given a chance. You need to knuckle down, or
So
who knows?
Were you there then during the academy days as well at Charlton?
Yeah. So this was another thing, and they've never done this before, and it was new to them. So I'm very, very thankful for them, to be honest, because they allowed me to go to this school where you had sporting sort of royalty, really.
Yeah.
And so many sports personalities have come from the school, and this was why probably I was as good as I was at football, because you're playing against the best of the best in the country, because everybody is going there at a certain level and standard, and they're only going to be better than what you are, or the same as what you are. Like, nobody really was bad as such. But Charlton were very good with it, very adaptable, and they understood that actually my education from my parents was just as important. And they came to the school, visited the school, had a chat with the first team coach, and he was actually an Ajax Cape Town coach that had come over to the school and basically wanted to really ramp up the first team in football. So they came over, looked at the school, had lunch there, had spent a whole day at it, came away and was just like, this is incredible.
Get rid of Lawrie.
They was just like, this is incredible. Can we send all of the kids in here as well? But yeah, literally, they was like, right, this is incredible. You've got a great coach. You've got great facilities. You're on the right sort of path. And I'm so thankful for my dad for it, to be honest with you. But he used to travel. So bearing in mind, Charlton always wanted me to still play the games. So although I wasn't training there every week and getting training at football every week, they still wanted me to play the games. So my dad, and we had Saturday school. So my dad used to drive up, on a Saturday. So I'd play a game on a Saturday for the school. He would drive up, watch that game, pick me up, take me home, obviously stay at home Saturday night, wake up Sunday morning, play a game for Charlton somewhere, could be Ipswich, could be wherever it could be, play that game, go home, have a Sunday dinner, and then drive me all the way back.
This sounds like the life of the founder.
All the way back again. And
sounds
it was
like the life of a startup, if you ask me. Non-stop. So obviously you got to a stage with the Charlton Academy that you left the academy. Were you disheartened at that point? Did your mum and dad ever sit down with you and sort of say, look, Lawrie, not all players will make it through. Not all players will go all the way. Or were they kind of backing you because they knew the talent you had?
One thing, my parents are not pushy at all. And I don't think I've ever sat and had a discussion, a proper discussion about how I've played in a game. Like, whether I played bad, whether I played good, whether I scored 100 runs in cricket. My mum and dad were exactly the same when I'd get back in the car or when I'd get home. There was no kind of real high and real low, and it was they were very sort of middle ground the whole way, which I think was very good for me, because if I'd got too high, I probably, there would have been massive come downs and stuff, whereas actually whether I'd play well or not, my dad would just be very simple as, thought you played well today, and that was it. There was nothing more kind of to it. So
do you think that was quite tactical looking back now, that actually don't want to get too big headed, but also don't want to put
it's something that I probably will take into bringing up my son at the moment and stuff. So it's something that I definitely would take. People parent differently, and it works for some and it doesn't work for others. And I think that's just an understanding, a good understanding as a parent of what the kid needs. And what I needed was that, really.
So what age did you leave Charlton?
So at Charlton, I had to make a decision with football and cricket. So I got to 15, obviously exams and everything all finished. It was then sixth form. At school, would love to have stayed at school, but actually at football, you get a YTS, which is basically when you become full-time. And at the age of 15, I had to then make that decision. Do I want to play football? Do I want to play cricket? Do I want to go into full-time football, or do I want to carry on at school and see where cricket kind of takes me?
Right.
And for me, exactly what you said at the start, I was 15. I was weighing it up and I was thinking, cricket. I was like, right, we get there at 9. I was like, we probably finish about 6 or 7. I was like, then all the parents are there, so they're all having drinks afterwards. It's like, you don't leave the cricket ground until about 11 or 12. I think that's my day done. I'm finished.
You're thinking about your social life.
I'm thinking, I can't do this every weekend. I'm done. Whereas football, I was like, right, 2 hours, I'm in, I'm out, and I can do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And I was 15, I was like, this is for me. Like, this is what I want. And it had nothing to do with money, and literally nothing at all, because I actually enjoyed them both as the same. It was purely that I got to that 15 and cricket was too long. It was just taking over my whole day, and I was just like, this is getting a bit draining, really, the whole day. Whereas I look back now and I think all of my actual, proper friends are all from when I used to play cricket.
Right, okay.
Because of that kind of camaraderie and the whole sort of going out for drinks afterwards. It was really much that. So at 15, I made that decision. I said, right, I'm going to go for football, which then meant that I had to leave Millfield to go to Charlton full time.
Okay. And was this signed in pro terms there?
So this was a YTS to start with. So you get a 2-year YTS. After the first year, I was already basically travelling with the first team to like Premier League games, sitting in the squads, things like that. So at the time I was thinking, brilliant.
Was it Kirbyshire in Charlton?
Yeah, Kirbyshire. I was like, I've cracked it. I'm fantastic. And then the second year, I had an injury and I wasn't at it again. I wasn't travelling with the first team, and kind of that year just passed me by. And I, at the end of it, Kirbyshire kind of got me in the office and said, look, this is great. You've done very well, but actually how I'm going to now, whether I offer you a first year pro contract or not, is actually down to the fact that would I put you straight? I need players that I'm going to be able to put straight in the team. Yeah. And at the moment, you're just not ready. He said, but you are a fantastic footballer. You've got a great attitude, all of those things. He said, you are going to make it in the game. He said, and I'll be honest with you, I don't say this to many people. He said, but you are definitely going to make it in the game. He said, and he used an example of another player at the time and said, look at how he's gone away, made a career for himself. Yeah. And he's still sort of in the game. And he said, you'll definitely do it. He said, and I hope that one day you come back to bite me in the arse.
Yeah.
He was
that must have been nice to at least part with that from someone at his level that actually believes that you still have another career in football. And I guess because a lot of people get spat out of the system and they've kind of got nowhere to go, at least then you knew in your mind, actually, there are still people that believe that I can go on and
because I'm sure that if he'd have said to me, it still rings in my ears now. Yeah. So it obviously left a big thing for me, but I'm sure that there were some people that he spoke to and they just said, sorry, not for us.
Yeah.
And suddenly you take that away and then you've got that rejection and then you're going to the next place, and if we look at it at work terms, suddenly you go for a job offer and they say no to you, but they don't give you any feedback on how good you were or how bad you were. You then go to the next job with that doubt in your mind that you've been rejected from the last job. You're going for a new one, and it's the same with football. And
you've also approached the second interview in the same way you approached the first one because they haven't told you to do anything different.
Exactly.
Whereas you're going to get the same outcome.
Yeah, and I took that away from me and I was like, right, okay, I am good enough. I'm going to make it. It's just at what level. So
what happens? You leave Charlton. Did mum and dad then say, look, maybe think about getting into work, Lawrie, you're 15, 16, maybe do you want to start working?
So again, no. And it was very, it was very just get back on the horse,
Where'd you go? Where did you go?
So I actually signed for Colchester.
Okay.
They'd just been promoted from League One into the Championship. So I went there, had a year there, didn't really play, kind of in and out. They had an unbelievable season that year as well, just missed the playoffs in the Championship. So I was still, I was like 17, still quite a young lad, 17, 18, and didn't play as much as I kind of wanted to. So I thought, I need to kind of go somewhere else really and play. Went out, had a look, nothing at all. Like no one was coming back in League One, League Two. And then eventually an agent called me and said, look, I've got a club called Stevenage that were in the conference. And I remember my dad going, do you really want to drop that low?
Right.
And I was sold Stevenage and I was sold that, it was an up and coming.
There was a project there,
it was an up and coming club. It had good facilities, which it did at that level, had its own training ground, had all of those things in place. And I was like, we should be all right. It should be all right. Turned up there, had a great season. lost in one of the playoffs that year. The manager then left and went to Gillingham. We then had Peter Taylor came in, missed the playoffs the next year, and then Graham Wesley came in, which was when everything just started to snowball and things started to change and players started to come in and we started winning every week. We started getting, we got promoted from the conference. Then the following year we got promoted straight away from League Two, so we done a back-to-back promotion. Yeah. And then we were doing so well in League One the next year. He then left and went to Preston. We managed to get to the playoff semi-final. Lost in the playoff semi-finals in League One. Charlton won the league that year, and then came in and an offer from Charlton.
So you were purchased,
in that time, and then purchased, and then went back to Charlton where I got released. So it was just a complete full circle of like my from snowballing from suddenly, and then what was I then? 21, 22. Oh no, actually I'd been 23 when I signed there. So
it's so cutthroat, isn't it? Yeah. It's ruthless football. What we read and what we hear. So when you were sort of moving, because you've had 9 clubs.
Yeah.
So when you're moving from club to club, are you thinking my time here is done? Obviously Charlton bought you, so that's a good thing. It's almost like you're stepping up again. If we relate it to sort of business terms and the conversations I have with some of our members about what we now call imposter syndrome, would you relate any of that back to, I'm actually not cut out for it, or I'm not as good as I thought I was? Were you feeling any of these things, or were you just like, oh, you know what, we punch on again and we'll try again with another club?
I was very young when obviously I got the first rejection from Charlton, and then I was the kind of after that and the Colchester one. So they were kind of my first 2 rejections.
They're still young at Colchester for first team.
Yeah, very young. So I was never, I think when you are young, you're fearless.
Yeah.
I don't think you think about those things as much. As I've got older and I've come to the end of a contract with a club and they haven't renewed, that plays a lot more in my head now than it did when I was sort of 17, 18 and leaving those clubs. So I think, like you said, the imposter syndrome, that you are very much, you sometimes do go, why didn't they keep me?
Yeah.
What's the reasoning? And they might have explained some of it, but actually you want them to explain a little bit more in detail. And some managers don't do that.
Yeah.
And it is so cutthroat in football that you do have to just wipe your hands with it sometimes and move on. And it's very much like that when you're playing as well. It's just...
And football people are football people, aren't they? That's what they live and breathe. So they don't necessarily know how the mental health side of things work, which is why there's so many things like what Beyond the White Line do, to support that much needed impact. But yeah, football people are football people, so they don't necessarily know how to put you out into the wild, but you have to kind of fend for yourself. Yeah. And so you've gone through these clubs, and you're now at Billericay. So when did you go into Billericay?
So I signed for Billericay 2 seasons ago now, and it came from, I was still at Ebbsfleet full time.
Yeah.
In the National League, and it got to a point where I'm sure that we'll go into it of kind of as I processed the changeover and becoming sort of part-time football, but it was a decision that I had to make really with work, and sort of said, look, actually we were doing really well. We had snowballed with the company, and it was like, right, actually we're growing. We need to bring some people on board. And it was at the time where we kind of sat down, and I sat down with Ross and Craig and said, look, I've probably got another 3 or 4 years in me at a good level. Shall I start the process now and actually come away? Because I had another year at Ebbsfleet on reduced terms, but they wanted to be full-time.
Right.
And I kind of couldn't commit to the full-time, and I said, actually, I need to now start to grow the business and start getting my feet sort of under the desk, as they say, sort of, actually starting to learn those things, because all that's going to happen is what you do with football is you just prolong that kind of inevitable.
As long as you can, and then maybe start people looking at badges and whatever.
Exactly. But you keep going, I'll do another year, and then suddenly at the end of the final year, you're then scratching around for a club, and you're kind of not like begging, but you're then going on trial to places that, you know, you've had a really good career and you're going on trial and stuff. And kind of gets to that point of, I didn't want to be in that situation. I wanted to make that decision myself, and I kind of wanted to come away from it on my own choice, on my own decisions, because when you are cut away, you know, whether it's rejection or not, you kind of, it will leave something inside you for a long time. Whereas actually, if I step away from it myself on my own terms, I've actually made that decision to go, I want to go part-time.
So when you were looking around the dressing room, for example, at Ebbsfleet, or even now at Billericay, are there any other players that are at the same level that you are in your career, in the twilight of your career, let's just call it that have got options outside of football, or were you quite unique?
I would say it's got more now, or people are a lot more aware of it now.
That they need to.
Yeah, I think you can have the conversation now.
Yeah.
Whereas before you couldn't. I remember when I was doing my my journalism and broadcasting degree.
What?
Yeah, it's a first as well.
This is a first as well.
I know. So I remember when I was doing that, and I'd go on the coach, and obviously we spent quite a lot of time on the coach, and I'd be on the coach, and you'd kind of whack a laptop open, or you'd have a book and you'd be reading, and you'd be getting all sorts of stick, you know, people walking down, and you'd just be getting everything badgering in your ear and stuff, and sort of being busy, or what you like, all of those
because you
things.
wanted to better yourself or whatever.
And also I think my time in football, those things were frowned upon by the management team sometimes, and they would look and say, oh, his head's not in it. He's not concentrating on the game, he's not concentrating on football. And to them, it's all about the next game, Saturday. It's all about Tuesday. It's that next thing. Whereas actually, I found as I got older that coming away and switching off from football made me better and made me a better person.
So do you think clubs are now championing that? So to say to youngsters or even fully fledged pros, always have your eye on outside the game now. You know, have maybe an extracurricular study that you could be getting on with, so that you can have a life away from football. Are they now putting that in?
That would never come from a management team. So it'd never come from the first team manager or the assistant or the coaches. It'd never come from them. It would come from people in the background of the club. If the club have the right infrastructure and have got the right people around, those conversations will be being had.
Yeah, I can't play Thursday night, Gaffer, because I've got an interview with Goldman Sachs.
But you can't just. It's so. I totally get the next game, and when you do interviews after football, you never speak honestly about how you're feeling or what's going on, because it's very just generic. Next game,
right?
Oh, we're going to concentrate on the next game. We played really well today. Like, it's that same old interview. No one, you find it rare now, someone like Akim Fenwa.
Yeah.
They come and have an interview and everyone loves it because he's being natural, he's being himself, he's being honest in how he feels. And that's what people want to see. No one really wants to see interviews where they just kind of generic next game, and they're just boring interviews. Really.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, you're right. So tell me, how does WillU Financial Group come along? How does that come into your life, and how do you find yourself stepping into that?
So how did it come in?
Yeah, how did you get involved with it?
So Ross, one of the CEOs of the company, he is my brother-in-law.
Okay.
And it kind of, Ross kind of came to me really and sort of just said, look, you know, you are getting towards the end.
Thanks, Ross.
Yeah, he must have been watching me every week.
When he was at Bolton, we thought you were finished.
So he came to me and said, look, you know, let's start to have a little bit of a discussion. Come in the office, see what it's about. Because, you know, I'd never been in an office before properly. Come in the office, see what it's about. You know, it's Craig and I, sorry. And I used to come in on a Wednesday because I used to have a day off. We used to sit, we used to chat, and it was just kind of getting me into that process of, you know, this is kind of what life might be like after football.
Yeah.
And they came to me with an idea and a plan, and they said, look, you know, we want to expand the business. We want to open up a couple more sectors, because at the time we obviously had the financial sort of side of things sort of done. They had the FX as well.
Yeah.
And they kind of said, look, you know, maybe we want to go into some life and health insurance, and it was actually general insurance to start with. And they was like, I think you could be a real key sort of part in it and sort of run it with us. So I was like, great. not really thinking this is what I'm going to do, this is what I need, but actually it was like, right, okay, there's something there for me to start the ball rolling with. I'm still playing football, I'm still concentrating on football, I still want to play for as long as I can, but actually there's something there to have a chat about.
Yeah.
We used to go and meet people, once a week, meeting after meeting after meeting. We used to come away, Ross and I used to be like, really loved that guy, like I'd love to work with him. And then Craig would be like 2 steps behind and going, that was a load of rubbish. No, not having him. And then literally we'd be back to the drawing board again. It'd be like, right, okay, where are we going next? Eventually, Vitality kind of dropped into our lap with the investment side for Ross as well. And it kind of worked quite nicely. I sort of got into it that obviously Vitality are all about their health, fitness and well-being. Which is a side that I love away from football and work and stuff. So I was like, this could work. Started to come in a little bit more. Obviously started to run it much more and things started to grow, which is why then that decision came where COVID hit. We had the pandemic. I was then starting to think, well, is football ever going to be the same? Is the money ever going to be the same around these sorts of levels? Yeah. Things are going to start to peter off. So actually...
So your percentages went from, like that with football down to that, and actually WillU was looking like the longer term future.
Exactly. And it was like, right, well, okay, what do I now need to start doing, which, I'm doing now, with what do I now need to do to be better in this industry, in this world? And that's taking exams. That's making sure that I am doing the right exams. Because what's quite hard is when you come from being young as well and having to like retire as such at a young age, people only know me as Lawrie the footballer or the person that's played football all his career, and then suddenly when you're sat down with someone and you're talking about maybe some private healthcare or business insurances and things like that,
it's 100%. You've got to find out if you're being taken seriously.
Like where are we at here? Because actually I'm here because I want to talk about football with you and some of your past sort of experiences. Or do we want to talk business? And it's really finding that line. And that's what I've kind of struggled with at times, because there'll be certain players and friends that I've got that only see me as a footballer. And then when I then have to explain to them that, I am qualified, I am taking exams, like I am doing all of those things that better me and that make me qualified for those things. Do they then understand where I'm at and probably where they're going to be in the next sort of 2, 3 or 4 years time?
They'd do well to listen to you then, right? I think it's incredible. And actually the transition, you've made it as easy as you can for yourself from professional sport into what you're doing now. It's like, actually, when you stepped into that WillU world, that's another thing. When you stepped into that WillU space, it's like, did it ever feel like starting again like you did with football, something that's completely new to you, something that's completely foreign? It's almost like, am I on trial for WillU now? Am I having to prove my worth that I can actually make it here in this particular area as well?
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on. I came in and I remember with Craig and going through some of like 1 month, going through all the pay and the money and flipping an Excel spreadsheet up, and I was like, whoa, I was like, not seen one of these for a while, mate. I was like, wow, I was like, what's going on here? And CRMs and I'm thinking keyboards. I'm like, I've not done keyboards for like years. Obviously the helping bit of with the degree got me a little bit more into that. Okay, I now need to start revising, I now need to start learning, I now need to start researching. All of those things started to process just before, but suddenly when you're in it and it's like, wow, this is all a bit new. And one of our employees, Georgia, is like, I'm sure that she's banged her head against the wall like many times talking to me, because it's suddenly she's thinking, why is this not resonating with him? Like, but you kind of say, give me a break, Georgia, like just
footballer,
just stay with me, I will get there. But I'm learning on the job.
Yeah, right. It's the best way, right? Deep end, straight away.
Do it,
And actually, you have a vested interest in that. You want it to be successful. You're not an employee; you're a founding partner of the business, and you've got your own piece of that pie that you're really trying to mould and make yours. So, how long was your career then? So your career was 15 years.
Well, if we class it professional,
Okay, so if you had a 15-year career in football, and you've been doing 2 years with WillU, so in another 13 years, you would have done the same amount of career for both. Do you think that you'll still be considered as Lawrie Wilson, a footballer then? You know,
No,
in 15
not at
years'
all.
time?
Yeah, and it's slowly, it's probably even more now that the kind of, when I initiate a conversation with somebody, football's like just...
Do you intentionally just try and avoid it?
Yeah, I just kind of, although it's a great talking point sometimes, I just, to start with, it's very much just, this is who I am now,
Yeah.
this is what I'm doing. And then as you kind of get to know that person and the conversation evolves, it can then be dropped in.
Yeah, I could imagine that it's quite tough. Actually,
yeah, I just don't like to. I've never been that footballer that's gone to somebody. I'm a professional footballer. Like it's just never been me. Some people are like it. Some people love it. Some people love to have that tagline of being a professional footballer. It's never really been for me.
And credibility is really important to everybody, right? Anybody in business, credibility is really important, but in your particular sector, the financial services sector, credibility is key. It's paramount because there's so many, what we call spank shops and, terrible outfits out there that
The FCA.
Yeah, exactly. So
you
need to be completely credible, and you going in with that business approach first is so important, because otherwise it's like, well, Laurie's just here because he's a face footballer, and actually what you've got is a lot more than that. So where's the future for you with WillU? Where do you want to get it to?
I mean, obviously, just growing it to the best business that we can. And when I say growing it, I don't mean just going here, there, and everybody, and kind of just getting as many clients in and whoever they are.
Yeah.
They need to be the right fit. They need to be the right people, and they need to understand where we're going as a company and how much we want people on board. And as a company, we're very much that we like to help as many people as we can.
Yeah.
And I think that stands us in good stead along the way as well. And if there is any companies out there or people out there that we can put into connections with each other, that we are very much like that. So when we are growing, we want everyone to grow at the same time.
Yeah.
It's not all just about us making sure that we get what we need over the line and kind of you're then done, you're then parked. We do take care of all of the clients and make sure that they're looked after in all their financial needs and aspects. But then also, if they need to be connected to somebody that we're already looking after, then that is something that we would do probably even before we've even got the client over the line. I
think what's great about the four of you, like Jack, Ross, you and Craig, is that you're incredible ambassadors for your own businesses. You've all got your individual sections that you look after and that you want to scale and grow, but you do it so well that there's no reason why this business is not going to be incredible. And in the next 10 years, when we look back and I say, well, Lawrie Wilson, founder and partner of WillU, that's what it will be. The football will always be there, won't have gone anywhere, and it'll always be something that you can talk about, but you'll be equally as proud of what your journey is with WillU, I believe, anyway. So obviously leave a legacy. That's the name of the podcast. What would be the legacy that you would leave? Let's just say you sold the business in the next 5 years. What would be the proudest moment for you with WillU? What would be the legacy that you'd leave?
Legacy that I'd leave. And
it could be business, it could be personal, it could be your football career will always be a legacy anyway. Yeah. But what's the next 10 years for you? What do you want to achieve and be proud of most?
I kind of want to be able to walk away and sort of say, I've given everything that I gave to football.
Yeah.
I've given the same amount of effort and time and passion for the company as well.
Yeah.
And whenever we walk away, whatever that looks like, at least we can all sit down and I've done it through football. I've looked in the mirror after every game, every training session and said, did I give enough? Did I play well? And all of those things. And I think I'll do the same for WillU as well, is that I walk away and say, did I give 100% in everything that I did? Did I try my hardest? Did I make sure that I sort of left no stone unturned? And then at the end of that, whatever happens, at least we can go to bed at night and sleep well because actually we've given everything we've got, and fingers crossed we've grown sort of, the biggest company that we can as a group.
Yeah, love that.
Yeah.
Lawrie Wilson.
Thank you very much,
mate.
Cheers. Pleasure.